Here I go, dappled with sunlight and looking slightly shaggy in these days of not going to the barber and haven't quite figured out how to do it myself yet. Well, I had hoped that at the time that these Friday features were going to be fairly whimsical, that I didn't have to be all promotional and professional, and that I didn't have to be serious. It would be just sort of a thought of the week kind of clickbait thing. Little prize for the YouTube subscribers to whom I owe much and whom I want to supply with something fun. But these are not the fun days. And I already took the time last week to do a Facebook live shot too, where I talked about the misuse of the term herd immunity. And I will add a link to that in these comments so that you can see it. Well, that means we're talking biology stuff. It means we're talking virus stuff. And I know all of you are inundated, and the last thing you need is another bit of hoo-ha about it. But I want to talk about something kind of interesting. There is, I think, a message or a thought about infectious disease that has been promoted through pop culture and perhaps through some education, which creates a binary between on the one side, you've got infected, basically sick. And then you got over here, not sick. And then you have contagion that is spread by the former, so that the sick can make the not sick also sick. And basically all I have to say is zombie virus, how it works in all the shows you watch and zombie stuff that you like. Okay, I know you're thinking, maybe, which is that you're saying to yourself, aha, I know where he's going. He's going to say that you can be asymptomatic while you're sick, and so walk around spreading the contagion because you're sick without looking sick, right? Right? That's what you mean. I know that. That's good that you know it, because it does apply to COVID-19. And since it goes against the really binary view, it's still, people are grappling with it a little bit. This is where you get this meme about, assume you're infected, assume that you have it. Well, I'm going to go one step further. So this is what I'm driving at. The only reason I'm doing this video is because I think that there is one step further that we need to go. And I'm talking about this because I'm seeing the culture that I live in here in Sweden, which is very hard hit by the coronavirus by the standards of the Scandinavian region. So I'm living in a pretty tough spot for this. There's a lot of deaths going on right now, and I'm doing tick, tick, tick for when it's someone that I know. So I'm taking this pretty seriously. Now, here is the thing. We are not just talking about being asymptomatic when you have yourself harboring this virus. I'm talking about the mobility of infectious material among people who are not infected, people who literally are not sick. They don't have it. In fact, imagine a whole bunch of people who don't have the virus. Now, how does it move around? It moves around because it persists on surfaces. And this is why people are wiping things down these days and in some places. And whether that is working or not needs a little bit of assessment, because we need to focus not just on like the stuff around you, like your doorknob or whatever. We need to focus on things that a lot of people touch. That's where we need to focus this kind of effort. Since it can be so mobile and become infectious for other people later, they can basically expose, right? We're talking about the mobility of it in terms of exposure when it's not actually harbored in a body. This is very different from a number of viruses that we're familiar with, so that we can identify, I have it, with I can give it. We need to focus instead on this can be spread without sickness being involved. And so exposure can be expanded and can become more and more and more dangerous. So that's what we do. Never mind this business about assume you have it. No, you can assume you don't have it. The question is, are you still moving it around? And the answer to that is, yeah, you are. And that's a big deal here in Sweden right now. I've already spoken a lot about the keypads. Okay, you don't use cash in Sweden, like maybe 1,000th of the time. You might use a little cash, and I can't even remember the last time I did. Everybody uses the keypads with their cards, or they use their app, their Swish, which is a cool thing that I would have talked about whimsically in the past, planning for these things. But anyway, the deal is that everybody's using these phones and everybody's using keypads. Now, your phone is yours, and 25, 50, 100, 1,000 strangers don't touch your phone every day. But 10, 20, 50, 100, 1,000 people, especially through secondary use, like not the next person after you, but the person after that, and then what pad they go touch, those are going to multiply exponentially. So the number of people who basically you just kissed is enormous when you went and purchased something. So it is those points that actually need to get swabbed. Also, in terms of like swabs and stuff and like, hand lotion, and everybody's all about killing the virus. Does it kill it? You know what? Your ability to kill a little bit of it is not really all that important. It's your ability not to transfer it. So swabbing the surface and disposing of that in an effective and permanent fashion is a much more important thing than killing that little teeny tiny bit. What matters is that that bit does not go places. So swabbing effectively is more important than slaying it in that moment. So we need to identify the places where these massive non-infected, regardless of infection, regardless of whether you actually have internalized it, we need to identify the spots where those get touched by lots and lots and lots of people. And that is what needs to get swabbed. And this should be practiced as a management initiative, as well as a personal initiative, everywhere. So especially right here in Östergötland, where I'm sitting, I feel the need for this quite keenly. And much talk seems to be barely processing that you can be infected but asymptomatic. That's what actually is creating this massive transmission. But I want to focus on the transmission of the virus from non-infected to non-infected, and therefore basically spreading its exposure around everywhere. Let me inform you that border lockdowns and similar things are not going to change that, because it is objects that matter, not people in this regard. So saying, oh, you guys all have to stay out right here doesn't mean that a shit ton of it didn't just hop the fence through the usage of ordinary objects. Keep that in mind. All this business of targeting people and blocking people and all the rest of it really isn't the primary point of protecting ourselves, our families, our communities, our society from what may well happen. There you go. I wish I could have been whimsical too, and I will look forward to your thoughts on this one. Thank you.